Or some of you asked for how do you work with a mouth, right? Well, you work with it like this. Yeah. So it's going to be one of those. So it depends on where you're at. Okay. Now, I know you've invested a lot of time and money being practicing being Feldenkrais teachers and your other professions as dancers or masseurs or whatever. I'd like you to, for a moment, just forget about that. And I'm going to flick up a few slides. And as soon as you see the slide, notice what's your first response to the question, what is this person doing? Yeah. What's this person doing? Or if there's a trio or more, what are these people doing? Okay? No, you don't have to, but if you'd like to, I could throw minties if I had some, but I don't. Damn, I should have planned that better. Okay. Cake. No, not be messy. All right. So remember, it's about the behavior that you're observing. So that's giving more away than I wanted to, but yeah. So here we go. First one. What is this person doing? Okay. Next one. What is the next person doing? I love that man. He's a gorgeous guy. What's this? What are these people doing? Yep. That's what it always looks like at the opera house. You know? Yep. Yeah. What's this dude doing? I don't know. Yeah. What are these three people doing? So you got the idea here, yes? That's a tough job. Oh, yeah. This one's much nicer. No, God, no. I wished I looked like that. No, I didn't look like that. No. What are these people doing? That's an interesting one, right? For me, that's an interesting one. Now, so here's a group of people. Here's another group of people. What are these people doing? All right. These? These? And this wee small person. And this person. And one more. There's two living beings in the next one. What are these two people doing? These beings doing? Oh, I'd like to eat you. I'd like to cuddle you. Yeah. So when you were saying to yourself, what are these people doing or this animal doing? You're looking in a context, relating it to some historical thing that you've experienced, and then you name it, or you might not name it. Yep. If I change that around and I said to you, how are these people standing? You'd be looking at those same photographs completely differently, would you not? And here's Here's the nature of the game that we play with people. They bring sometimes their pain, sometimes their difficulties, and we go, what is it that you do? Tell me something about a behavior in the real world. Because we need to know that so we can situate what we do with them in the movement so that it relates back to the behavior. Does that make sense? That's always what we're doing. Yeah. I have, if it's, sorry, aches. Why do I always look at you with aches and pains? If they have aches and pains, yeah, I can't, look, I can't, yeah, I can't, this, it's like, yeah, good, great. Or, my turnout, it's a bit, something sucks over here, I just can't get that leg. They've got a part mentality. Then you somehow have to invite them into a behavior. If they offer that like that, wonderful. If they don't offer it, you got to start enticing, digging. Then once they give you a behavior, if we go back to some of these pictures, you can see she's standing, right? Definitely standing. But what's the quality of that standing? How is she, all that Feldenkrais technical jargon, how is she organizing herself to do that? It's standing. Do you have any doubt that it's standing? Or that? Or that? Or that? They're all, every person I would propose to you in these photographs is standing. And they're all standing in a different way for the purpose that they're doing. So that's a bus stop standing. You could say that's a worried standing. Is it going to come? I've got this really important, interview this morning. The more that I can enter into the space of the person's life, the more I can relate to them. So that standing, yeah, cool, and a particular relationship between body parts, for what? For what? That's the question. For what? Then once that has a meaning, for what? That's what you hold for them while you're giving them the lesson. And that's what you bring them back to in a functional integration at the end of the lesson. And then you ask, is that acceptable? Is that acceptable for you? You've seen me, you've heard me ask me, is this okay? Is this what you wanted? And they go, yeah, okay, or maybe not. And then you can plan for the next lesson or whatever it is. But this is a really important thing, that we're looking at human behavior, human action. There is no behavior without movement. This is underscore Feldenkrais's big claim. Movement is the underpinning of everything. No movement, no life. So if you tweak a little bit about the movement, you cross your fingers that it's going to appear in the behavior, at least for 5 minutes. At least, yeah? Like, after an ATM, you stand up and you've got that afterglow or whatever's happening. It hangs around until you pick up that cup and then it goes, where did that go? What happened to that afterglow? This happens with everybody. So you cross your fingers and you go, I hope there's an after effect that, excuse the language here, that bleeds into their life. That's an old metaphor, isn't it? When we used to use ink, and if you didn't use the right paper, the ink would just go into the paper. Well, this is what we're kind of hoping for. It bleeds. But we can do better than this. I think we can do better than this. We can help the person understand what it is to purposefully practice something in their life. And I don't mean to practice the movements, because that's a tough gig. I don't know about you. How many people do their home study? They said, okay, that's the answer. Yeah. Do you fare better? No. Absolutely. So this is what we get to share about our practice, right? How do we do this? But if you can frame it in a certain way, people are more likely to do something to carry it over into their everyday life. Yeah. And usually it's not what they believe they think they need to do. They want to practice the movements. I'm going, yeah, you can, but it's not quite enough. Now, you probably, I don't need to say anymore, because you know in your own practice of ATM, there's this zone that you get into that lets you really richly engage with the environment of that lesson. You all know that. This is what you need to share with people. That's what you need to share with people, because they all stand at their sinks, and they all stand at the tennis net, and they all stand at the bus stop, and they all do this. They all do their thing. And if they can practice what they do with that sensibility that you've inquired, everything's an awareness through movement lesson. Everything. Me sitting here right now and feeling, oh, I think my knee's going to slip off. Yeah, it is. Yeah, there we go. Yeah. As soon as you're able to bring your attention to it in a sophisticated way, you're in the zone. When you're in the zone, guess what? You and I have a choice. That's the game. As soon as you're in the zone, you have a choice. That's the method in a nutshell. Getting people to that point when they realize, oh, wait a minute, I'm a conscious being. I can be present to this. I can sense what's going on. Damn it, I don't want to do that. I'll do something else. Now, how many things they've got a choice about? It's a different case. I was very, very naive about that. So we'll finish this and open it up to your comments and questions. I was very naive about people's ability to make options for themselves. I believed just what I just said now, yeah? Oh, once they're in that zone, poof. So I think it was in third year after graduation, a very good friend said, I'm going away for holidays. Will you teach my awareness through movement class? I said, sure. So after about the third or fourth week, I said to the group, okay, so now you've had 2 variations. Could you please make some of your own? Well, I was astounded. They came up with maybe 1 or 2 variations, and that was it. The activity stopped in the room. It's like I can't think of anything else. And so there is this other side of it. How do we start to think of creating options? And I'm using the creating word in that everyday pedestrian sense. How do I create an option? Because I don't know about you, but I'm inundated with options from the outside world. It's overwhelmed for me most of the time. But that's different when I make them. When I produce the option, instead of picking one out, if that's not overwhelmed, that's actually interesting. So when you hear the word we give people options, substitute give with we assist people to find ways to create options, to create or make. Make has the same thing, making, like you made the cake. Yeah, making. Yeah. Yeah. Oh shit, I told another person that's less for me. Yeah. Make and create are the same kettle of fish for me. If you can assist someone to be aware and have a few tools about how to create some options, that's it. That's the complete package. So they don't actually even have to lie on the floor. You don't have to lie on the floor. I don't have to lie on the floor. I can go, oh, right now I'm sitting on that left buttock and this is starting to hurt a little bit. Maybe I should shift my position. Yeah, okay, that's acceptable for the moment. That's it. So, yeah. Of course, the more difficulty a person's in, neurologically, structurally, emotionally, they need a little bit more assistance because they might not necessarily have the means. All right. So, so that's what that slideshow is about. Just, I drew that crazy little diagram up on the board. Ideal standing, and you can reflect on that. How good a illustrator Zoran is, and no, he's not. But over the last 2 weeks, I've said everything that I've done in this room has been pitched towards standing. Yeah, and when you reflect, you can go, oh yeah, we did that ATM for this aspect of standing. We did this for that aspect of standing. If you can remember them and list them, all well and good. Everybody stands, except those who can't. Except you're paralyzed from the legs down and you can't stand. Everybody stands. It's a good place to start. All right. So that's enough from me. What are your thoughts about that?
I've probably just started to become more consistently like that after, nearly 2 and a bit years of doing this fairly intensive course. So I'm that exploring options and having the confidence.
Yeah.
The confidence is the big thing for me, the confidence to say, yeah, I'll go ahead and try that, because before that I'd go, oh my God, I could be undoing something and it'll be worse. And I'm wondering what it actually sounds like when you've got your client with you, just say on an individual basis, at the end of the lesson, what you actually say to, is it something like, when you're sitting, why don't you play around in the next week and see if changing the weight on your sit bones makes it. I mean, I'm just wondering how you actually, in a concrete way, encourage that exploration and confidence that they're not going to undo something or make it worse. Or
they will. They'll undo something and they'll make it worse.
Then it's a very poor feedback loop for them. That's what I found. You think you give up because you think, oh, that's made it, I feel worse than I did at the start. So
yeah.
Not in an instant, but not like saying, oh, that's less comfortable than that. It's just like at the whole end of the week, I feel worse.
Great. So here's a recommendation. Can you hold that question, and then when the three of us are up there, we can give 3 different responses to that. Because I think, well, I don't know, we might have 3 completely different responses. And if you asked us tomorrow, we might have another 3. So. But your question is a really good question, and you used a really nice word that is fundamental. The attitude of play, because you used the word play, and I heard that. It's kind of sprung out at me. So that's part of your answer. Yeah. So not fobbing it off, I just think your question directed to the 3 of us so that we can hear 3 different responses, not just me. Yeah. All right. So please remember that one. Okay. What other thoughts are there? I've decided to cross my other knee over. That's why I was laughing. I wasn't laughing at you, Linda. I backed it up. Okay, there you go. That's good. Narayan. And then Philippa, you were, yeah. No. Well, you never know. Repetition is good.
I particularly really resonate a lot with this course for the fact that it addresses that creating options, like you actually generating the possibility of creating options instead of just like, all right, here's what options you have, and then you can you know, you can choose between these
Mm-hmm.
ones. And I think I'm really happy you said that with, you know, because a lot of the ATMs or awareness through movement, you're getting directed and you go, all right, you know, here's an option, here's an option, here's an option. And without coming to a defining point, I still feel like, you know, I'm growing slowly in confidence of like, there's not, of like just going into options, they're not better or not worse. And it's like so simple, but it's like to build confidence in that and just keep getting information and having the confidence in oneself to explore that. It's really, I know that's valuable. So yeah, I like that. When I finished school, someone said, you know, it was sort of dragging myself to the end of it after, you know, like a bit of, you know, death in the family and stuff. And then it was like, all right, well, you know, school all of a sudden had a lot more of a light propensity, you know, and people are crying and, you know, coming to the end like it's their whole life and all this pressure installed on them. And it really was, you know, like they're teaching you what to think all this time, and you've just been taught what to think, and not many people had really given the opportunity to allow me or any like of my friends and people I knew, like give them the opportunity and the space of how to think for themselves. So yeah, just that's really valuable.
Thanks, Narayan. Philippa? Was
Yes, intent.
yeah.
I think what's really interesting about each of the people when you're looking at them, and when perhaps when you're starting the dialogue with somebody when they come to see you, is even though they're all standing, what drives the difference in their standing is their intent. And if what we've been doing is standing in our relationship to our eyes, you can see in each of them there's so much of their intent and their stance. Their eyes and their feet are directed by their intent.
Absolutely.
So, what was I going to say?
Keep going.
Yeah, so I think that maybe the questions is not just what we're doing, but what's the intention behind that doing that will help us unfold what it is.
That's nice. That's nice. That's right. So there's the behavior. So this is just a historical turn on psychology, right? At the beginning of the 1900s, psychology was a really nice, beautiful new discipline. And it was being studied through introspection. In other words, just like you do in ATM, you turn your attention inwards and you try to find out exactly that. What's mind? What's a thought? What's an intention? What is that? But unfortunately, whoops, there's that leg again. Yeah. Unfortunately, they weren't very skilled at it. And so the people who were the subjects were very much influenced by how the person talked to them, and they reported things that they thought the researcher wanted to know.
In response to intent, a lot of, especially year 12s, they're asked to create or make something to reveal a very particular intent, and they are actually marked on whether or not somebody else can read their intent.
Yeah, that's called an art gallery.
No, that's called an assessment.
And yet that's exactly what we do with artists. You know, oh, can I read the artist's mind? What were they thinking at the time? What were they feeling?
Yes.
This is what we're really excellent at doing as human beings, by the way. If you and I can't read a person, and I'm using read in quotation marks, if we can't read them very well, we are not very socially successful. yeah, people with autism. I knew this story would come in. Yeah, here he is, Milton Erickson, right? I've gone off tangent. I'm on tangent. Milton Erickson, who was probably one of the most well-known hypnotherapists, who had a very different way of doing his work. Initially was a very dyslexic child. And I went up to Jenny the other day and said, do you know this story? And she looked it up on Wikipedia. It wasn't there. But there was some biographer said, look, he had his siblings, and his siblings would be playing around, and he'd hear them make this sound. He didn't know what the hell that was. No, didn't know what that was. What is that? Well, it's a couple of glottal stops, you know. Yeah, you know better than me. What is that sound? Diaphragm. Yeah. So he. Now he thought to himself, okay, so how am I? If I don't know what that is, maybe if I just find how to make the sound. So he made the sound. And then people related to him because he made the sound. That's a learned thing. We all do it. We do these funny things, and should we have just the right person around us, they'll go, oh, that's wonderful. You're so clever, aren't you? Yeah. Wow, do it again. Yay. I hate this one. Yay. Ooh. Anyway, so psychology started like that. But it was unsuccessful because they weren't skilled in introspection. They didn't know how to play that game. If only they'd knew some Tibetan Buddhists at that time. Never mind. What then swept the world and was in that world, it's still in there, was this thing called behaviorism. And in behaviorism, there is no thought, there is no awareness, there is no thinking, there's only stimulus and response. Right? There is no intention. We can't investigate that because that's inside the bubble. No, we don't look, we just look at what's that? What's this person doing? Thank God, then the cognitive revolution came along, and awareness and thinking and cognition and perception started to be points of interest. And now we're a little bit further down the track. And this is why I think Feldenkrais and the somatic practitioners were so much ahead of their time, because they were already thinking in these terms. And there were, the psychology world in the United States wasn't the world, but it was certainly dominant, hugely dominant. So your ability, which is what they call folk psychology, to read what this person does, comes out of your history. If you've never seen a tennis game, you'd still say, he's looking at something. Yeah? What's this dude doing? He's looking at something. I think he's going to swat a fly. No. So you'd still read. This is what now I'm repeating myself, this is what we're fantastically good at, most of us as human beings. You are doing that when a person comes to see you for an FI. You are doing that when people come into your class for an ATM. You might know that you're doing it. You might not be conscious, but you have already formed a number of opinions, how they are, who they are, what they like, what they don't like. Do they like me? Don't they like me? Will they be tricky or not tricky? It's happened like that. Your job and my job is to actually unpack that and go, wait a minute, what assumptions have I just made? Yeah. Why is it that when certain people walk into the room, I go, and not, and yet I do? So that self-observation is pretty cool. And then you turn that around and you go, what? I'm watching you. I'm watching you. I've already said this in some of the things. I'm already watching you as soon as you've walked through the door. If you've contracted me to be your facilitator, as soon as I listen to you over the phone, I'm watching you. As soon as you walk through the door, I'm watching you. Not with critical eyes, but behaviorally, I'm listening for intentions. I'm doing interpretations. I'm watching your gestures. I'm listening to the way you structure your language. Is there an overriding metaphor there? It's all there. It's all there. And when you start to unpack these things for yourself, you become a great, you become of great service to the person, because they can't necessarily do that. Yeah. And it's actually a fascinating thing to do. All right.
What I was going to say, back when Philippa started, was that just to build that link of what you've been doing, is that it's not as simple as one thing. There's intention, but the state, whether they're confident or not confident at the beginning, makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
And that the challenge for me in this work is to hold in my backspace all of those possibilities. And I might separate them out and focus at different times, but the importance of holding all the different potentialities that are there that could be motivating that intention or
Absolutely.
calling it forth, or all of it. So that was all I was going to say, which you kind of did.
You said it far more succinctly. I like to go off on tangents and embellish. But it's not a but. There's something that you said there. Yeah. So we all, as people that are sharing Feldenkrais kind of lessons and experiences, we have already entrained our attention to do that through awareness, through movement practice, right? Lie on the floor, pay attention to your breathing. Yeah. Now this whole lesson, pay attention to the movement of your abdomen as you breathe in and as you breathe out. Let that be in the background at all times. Do not lose track of it. Now, raise your arm towards the ceiling. What trajectory did it go? So, the generality, what are those possibilities for them? And then the specifics. Because we need to take a stance of some kind. You need to choose to do something. You can't do everything, so you choose to do one thing whilst the breathing is going on in the background. You do that trajectory, and then you do that trajectory, and then you do that trajectory. Did I still hold those possibilities in the background? I think I forgot when I got to this one, because I was trying to be a smart bastard. Yep. So it's there, it's practiced. It's right inside you. It's not this little trick that you play, which is so, so important. So I will close with this. There's a difference between doing, and please know that this is a personal opinion. There's a difference between doing tricks with a person and being with a person in such a way that they evoke out of you what you know. So you are spontaneously, well, more or less spontaneously with them, and they're just kind of drawing it out of you. That's very different to go, okay, all right, so, yeah, I think I'll try that one. It's got a different feel. People will realize they're not stupid. They'll think they're trying out something. Yeah. So that, you know, that cargo pants analogy that I gave you last week? Nah. It's a nice idea. You got to stitch those, everything that's in those cargo pants, it has to be under your skin. has to be woven into the fabric, of your flesh. I told you, it's my perspective. I don't want another perspective right now. I'd like to sit it like that. Thank you. But yeah, so please remember that, and the second perspective. Okay. All right. So we're going to continue on from yesterday, exploring rollers and stuff, but there's a little story I'd like to play you first. I'll contextualize the story. It's the first year of the Amherst training program. It's the first day of the Amherst training program. And someone has asked the question, how many lessons does a person need to benefit from functional integration? This short story is a response to that question. However, the response is far greater than the person probably expected. It's a comment about our tendency to want to identify with things, and I'll play it for you now. And that's good. There it is. Waveform.
I had a woman who had multiple sclerosis for 40 years. And we had a famous Professor Halper at the Jerusalem University who was a world authority on those kind of diseases. For 40 years, he examined her every 6 months, and probably your lucky, your disease advancing slowly. But after 40 years, she found herself that she couldn't walk, and the first time she came to me, her husband carried her on his hands, the 6 steps that they had to go on. And from the car, he had to carry her to the 6 steps. She couldn't walk up and down. She had a surprisingly small number of nurses, and she was not a young girl. Her son was 22. And she recovered complete usage of her body to the point where she could go to groups, but nobody there knew that she had multiple sclerosis. She learned to stand on her hand and could stand on 2 rollers with closed eyes. She could do that. I told her, now, you see, you have recovered everything. You can walk, you can stand on rollers, you can stand on your hand. And in my presence, she could walk like you and I. But as soon as she left my house and went into the street, she just couldn't walk. She kind of felt that if she does not walk with that kind of, then people will think that she pretends to be a healthy person. And they won't recognize her. They know her for 14 years like that. And then if she goes wherever she comes and doesn't do the kind of thing by which people know her, she loses her identity. When I tried to inquire that what is wrong with her, she told me, yes, I can do everything, but I have multiple sclerosis, and my disease is still there. You didn't do anything about the disease. Now, how do you knock out the disease out of the head? This happens with many, many people. People can recover, but when they have an idea of disease, they cannot get that out of their mind. You must simultaneously make the mind work a little bit differently In other words, that the treatment is a functional intervention. It's not a local improvement of the body. So this woman had her body cured completely, but she was as ill as she was before. Therefore, it wasn't properly cured. Because she should have been cured, not her body. Now, I didn't understand that she had such a dichotomy, that she and her body were two different, separate things, and that she had no say in it. Therefore, I should have treated her, not her body. Now, I'm talking to you that because many of you treat the body. You have to treat the person, not the body.
There's a lot of rich ideas in there that need more investigation, and perhaps we'll do that through a Zoom tutorial of some kind, because that's very rich. But for the purposes of the ATM, if you have a person that is starting to lose their muscle function and muscle strength for whatever reason, then of course, if they stand in peculiar ways, you know, where the muscles are having to work a lot, it becomes hard to do. I was curious in that story about why was he so keen to say she was able to stand on rollers? And I think for me, the answer is when you stand on a roller, you have to be very precise about how you organize your body weight, how the skeleton is relating to each other. Because if you don't organize it well, you're off the roller. You're off the roller. Especially when someone's working with you hands-on, helping you to find that organization. So when you come off the roller, you actually lead less than you usually expect to need of muscular work. So of course, she could walk better. She could stand better. She can do her daily chores better because of organizing herself to stand on an unpredictable surface. Now, that's interesting thinking, yes? And the other thinking, that's part of Linda's question. Yeah. So we're going to continue the roller work with this idea in mind. How do you and I continue to refine? How do we continue to perfect our own standing? Yeah, that's the question. All right. What's the time? Do you need a break? Do you need a break? You say yes? Yeah, okay, so go have a break. Okay, I should ask a different question. Would you like some cake now? Right, all right. So